Welcome, welcome, one and all, and thanks for joining us for the 2021 RACECAR Grand Prix. We've got 6 teams competing this year in the 2021 Grand Prix, and we've got a little bit of a bracket, which you should be able to see now. So we're going to go ahead and fill in this bracket today with all the teams up until the grand finale, the final Grand Prix race, which will be taking place tomorrow. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with match 1 between Materdors and Team Coca-Cola. And we'll start the match. We've got Materdors on the left side and Team Coca-Cola on the right. As you can see, they're both starting out the race following these green lines, trying to beat each other out of the gate. Looks like they're about head-to-head. Materdors pulling a little bit forward before a collision with Team Coca-Cola. Maybe difficult to recover for Materdors here. And indeed, they do get reset facing the proper direction before entering challenge 1. Team Coca-Cola taking the lead, navigating this challenge, which is mainly a wall following type of challenge. And we can see in the map below that it's quite a short challenge, just following these walls. Another collision between Materdors and Team Coca-Cola. Team Coca-Cola appearing to stay in their lane, following their racing line. Materdors not letting up. And Team Coca-Cola has picked up that green tracking line, which will take them into challenge 2, with Materdors following closely behind. Team Coca-Cola entering the Glass Canyon Bridge Challenge. This is a challenge where teams follow a lane, I should say, between 2 colored lines that actually change color between orange and purple around the corners. They navigate this challenge by recognizing an AR marker, similar to a QR code that you might have noticed floating above the entrance to the challenge. So teams are navigating this bridge and the entire course autonomously. And they've developed their code to do such. Team Coca-Cola edging out Materdors in this challenge and regaining that green tracking line. Materdors following closely behind, nearly falling off the edge of the Glass Canyon Bridge there. Teams can use these green tracking lines in between challenges to build up a little bit of speed and shave time off of their lap. Now we're entering the next challenge, this hall of orange columns. Teams read AR markers to be able to tell which side of the column has a low, short wall and avoid that wall, hopefully, as the wall is mostly undetectable with the team sensors, which include camera, depth camera, and LiDAR. Materdors is opting not to pass through that hall of orange columns, instead taking the long way around, as we can see in the map on the bottom screen. Taking that green tracking line around allows teams to implement a more simplified driving method, just following the tracking line without having to navigate those columns or read the AR markers, which can be an advantage. Less room for error, especially when there's collisions between cars. Both teams now approaching the elevator shaft. This elevator shaft includes an AR marker on the back wall that's actually colored based on whether or not the elevator is available. Materdors approaching Coca-Cola and closing that gap, and a little bit of a collision there. As we can see, the AR marker is lit up blue. Team Coca-Cola takes the elevator. Materdors following closely behind. Oh, but Materdors misses the elevator. They're going to have to wait for the next one. And that's quite a time delay, 5 to 10 seconds for this elevator to come all the way back down again. Coca-Cola disembarking from that elevator and following their tracking line to the next challenge, which is a cone slalom. We've got Materdors still at the bottom of the elevator shaft, waiting for the elevator platform to come back down. There they go, and they grab it. Team Coca-Cola opting out of the cone slalom, instead choosing the line tracking cone slalom. As we can see in the bottom map, that line tracking cone slalom is a lot longer than the regular challenge cone slalom, but a little bit easier to navigate as teams just have to center on that green line rather than detect the colored cones. Materdors also approaching the entrance to the cone slalom challenge. And they also opt out. They'll be following that cone slalom tracking line along with Coca-Cola. Opting into the challenges can help teams shave a little bit of time off their laps, and in this case where we're racing head-to-head, actually cut off or gain an edge on the opponent. Both teams now tracking these lines. Students implemented these tracking methods, both the line tracking and the cone detection and avoidance, in previous labs throughout the month that they've spent coding these cars in the virtual simulator environment. And of course, today they bring all of those labs and stitch together all of the code from those previous labs to create their algorithm that allows the cars to navigate this very complex Grand Prix course this year. We see Team Coca-Cola has exited the cone slalom challenge and is now returning to the tracking line. The next challenge here is actually crossing train tracks, complete with moving trains, quite large ones that if a collision occurs with a car, will set them back quite a bit. Team Coca-Cola opting out of the train challenge, instead taking the long way around a sort of chicane through these brick walls, which adds quite a bit of time. But again, the challenge of avoiding those trains is not a trivial one. Materdors following behind Team Coca-Cola, just entering that frame in the bottom image, as we can see. Missing the line a little bit there, but regaining it quickly. And will Materdors opt into that train challenge? They will not. They will track the line past it. I don't blame them. It's quite a difficult task to get past those trains without a collision. So the inclusion of these moving game elements in the Grand Prix is actually new to the Grand Prix this year. Team Coca-Cola also opting out of the orange platform challenge, another difficult one that sees teams have to utilize a sensor fusion technique to line up their depth camera images with their color camera images to be able to detect those low platforms. They are not detectable with the team's standard and quite trusty LiDARs that produce a depth map all the way around the car. Materdors exiting those curves, passing the train challenge, and now approaching the orange platform challenge, which they also opt out of. Yeah, these low platforms and low obstacles in general are pretty difficult to detect without more advanced sensor fusion techniques. And of course, the teams getting lost in those challenges can mean a significant increase in their total lap time. We got Team Coca-Cola sending the ramp into a long straightaway and a banked turn that will lead them into the last challenge. Materdors just finishing up, or about halfway through the second set of curves. Those run parallel to the orange platform challenge. We see Team Coca-Cola on the right building up some speed. This banked turn allows teams to build up a lot more speed than they normally would without spinning out. And of course, that speed will be very necessary in the final challenge, which includes a jump. If teams don't build up enough speed for that jump, they can actually end up back in that olive orange columns quite close to the beginning of the track. Materdors ascending the ramp to join Team Coca-Cola on that long straightaway as Team Coca-Cola approaches the final challenge. As we may notice, each one of these challenges includes a parallel track that just involves green line following. This allows teams to strategize about which challenges they would like to opt into to shave a little bit of time off of their lap if they're confident that they can get it done. Materdors just entering that banked turn and entering the final colored section of track. Team Coca-Cola opted out of that jump and is now passing over a raised glass platform, tracking that green line all the way to the finish. Not sure if Materdors will follow them down that green line or attempt the jump. Materdors also opts to follow that green line, nearly losing it there and falling off of the raised platform, but approaches that glass bridge. And this glass bridge will take them directly to the finish line. Team Coca-Cola approaching the finish line now. And they're across at 214 seconds. Quite a quick time on this very long and complex Grand Prix. Materdors is getting a little bit of airtime, trying to close that gap and shave down a little bit of time on their lap as they approach the finish line. And that concludes match one. Congratulations to Team Coca-Cola. They will proceed to the next match against the Hot Rods. But first, we'll approach the second lobe of our bracket between Coastal Coders and Speedy Jhammus. All right, we're into match two. On the left side of the screen, we've got the Speedy Jhammus, and on the right, Coastal Coders. And let's get the match started. Coastal Coders cutting a little bit ahead, trying to gain an edge in the beginning of that match with a little bit more speed. And it seems like it pays off. Speedy Jhammus opting out of that first challenge, choosing to track the green line around it. Coastal Coders out of challenge one now, regaining that green tracking line and approaching the Glass Canyon Bridge. Speedy Jhammus taking the long way around, tracking that green line. And Coastal Coders already at the olive orange columns. Oh, nearly a collision with the first orange column. Quite a bit of reversing. It'll be interesting to see which way they go, and they seem to opt out of the orange column challenge, instead tracing that green line the long way around. Speedy Jhammus is approaching that Glass Canyon Bridge, crossing it pretty smoothly. I should note here that the students chose their team names, and I believe Speedy Jhammus is a reference to a player character in an online video game. Coastal Coders, I believe, was a team of programming students that all on or near a coast. And Coastal Coaters, perfect timing on that, caught the elevator right as the platform dropped. That'll allow them to shave a little bit more time off their lap. Speedy Jhammus approaching the orange columns, and they're going to attempt it. Coastal Coaters approaching the cone slalom, and in that first round, missed the first cone and got reset back to the beginning of the challenge. Many of these challenges will send a car back to the beginning where the AR marker starts if they break the rules of the challenge. So in this case, cars are required to pass on the left side of a blue cone and the right side of a red cone. And if that doesn't happen, they get sent all the way back to the beginning of that challenge. Speedy Jhammus is trying to close the gap and build up some speed exiting this elevator. And the Coastal Coaters, having moved on to the brick wall portion, running parallel to the train tracks. The Speedy Jhammus is opting to take the green line around the cone slalom. This won't necessarily help their lap time, but it is a surefire way to get past this quite challenging piece of track. In particular, students have difficulty with the slope version of this track. Most of their code that was developed for cone slaloming happened on flat ground. And that change in elevation or slope increases the car's speed and requires a little bit of a quicker reaction on the car's part. Both teams tracking those green lines. Speedy Jhammus is nearly approaching the train portion of the track. And Coastal Coaters already on the ramp, approaching that long straightaway before the banked turn. Speedy Jhammus seem to have missed the green line. Hopefully they can recapture it. Yep, and they do. Opting out of that train track section. I don't think many teams actually opted into the train track section this year, but we'll have to see with the other two teams in the bracket. Coastal Coaters are building up quite a bit of speed on this banked turn before approaching the colored section of track. That might be indicative of them choosing to opt into that jump where they'll need to build up a significant amount of speed. And they do. Yeah, this section of track leading up to the jump includes a lane that's marked off in blue lines, different from the other lanes. And students, robots need to pick up on those blue lines and make sure that they're between them as to not fall off that section of track. Coastal Coaters do clear that jump. They've built up a significant amount of speed. And it looks like they've grabbed that green line that will take them all the way to the finish with a time of 197 seconds. That's the fastest time we've seen so far. Speedy Jhammus is falling behind, just ascending that ramp into a long straightaway and bank turn. Coastal Coaters taking somewhat of a victory lap, it looks like, completing the course maybe a second time. The car programmed by the Speedy Jhammus appears to be pretty steady, following those green lines on the bank turns and approaching the final colored section of track before the last challenge, which is a jump. Students had just 1 week to complete work on these robots for the challenge. And the previous 3 weeks were spent completing some labs that have provided them with some of the skills and tools they'll need to complete this challenge. Teams were around 4 to 5 students each as well. Quite a bit of teamwork taking place and long hours, code sharing, and making sure that they got their algorithms perfectly tuned for this track. And Speedy Jhammus make it all the way across the line. Total time of 263 seconds, which is not bad. It's a very difficult track, and making it all the way to the end is an achievement. So congratulations to the Coastal Coders. They will proceed to the next round of the bracket against the Drift Kings. But first we'll return to the top lobe of the bracket, and that'll see the Team Coca-Cola go up against the Hot Rods. And we're back with match 3, which you'll see the Hot Rods on the left side go up against Team Coca-Cola on the right. And we'll get this match started. There they go, out of the gates. We see the Hot Rods building up quite a bit of speed here. It looks like they're about, entering challenge 1. Team Coca-Cola following close behind. And the Hot Rod's already onto the Glass Canyon Bridge, following those orange and purple lines. Team Coca-Cola following close behind, finishing up that wall following challenge before regaining the green tracking line. Love the metallic paint on the Hot Rods team when that artificial sun in the simulator hits it. Team Hot Rod's already approaching the next challenge, which is the olive orange columns. We'll see if they opt into that or try to take the long way around. They take the long way around, looks like. Yep. Hopefully they can build up a little bit of speed on these straights. Then they won't lose too much time avoiding that olive columns. Team Coca-Cola making their way very precisely across that Glass Canyon Bridge. Rock steady in these turns, which is pretty difficult tracking those lines and making sure that the car stays centered in them. And they've regained that orange track, or the green tracking line, I should say, moving into the next challenge, the olive columns. The Hot Rod's approaching that elevator shaft with quite a bit of speed. Hopefully they can, oh, they just missed that elevator platform. That'll cost them quite a bit of time. Hopefully they can make it up later on in the track. And they're waiting pretty close to the edge of the elevator platform. Hopefully that platform doesn't hit them on the way down. Coca-Cola opting into that Hall of Columns challenge. A near miss with the last column. They've shaved quite a bit of time off by taking that shortcut. Oh, and Hot Rods got hit by the elevator shaft platform, transporting them back to the beginning of that challenge, which thankfully is just right behind where they were. Coca-Cola approaching the elevator shaft, but not quick enough to catch that platform. They'll have to wait for the next one. Hot Rods ascending to the next round, next challenge, which is the cone slalom. We'll have to see if they opt into the challenge or take the long way around, tracking that green line. Team Coca-Cola getting squared up, ready for when that elevator platform drops. And Coca-Cola making their way onto the elevator platform. Chomping at the bit, it seems like. It looks like they're driving against that back elevator platform wall, burning out their tires as they grab that green line and get going. Meanwhile, the Hot Rods about half the way down that cone slalom with the tracking line. They've got quite a bit of ground to cover here, but they're doing it pretty quick. We'll have to see if Team Coca-Cola opts for the shortcut or takes the tracking line out. It looks like they're taking the tracking line out. That won't do them favors when trying to catch up with Team Hot Rod, but definitely a safe way to get down this pretty precarious hillside for the next challenge. Both teams tracking that green line. And teams have spent the last couple days of class tuning these robots in the virtual simulation environment, but nothing really prepares them for a head-to-head match against another team. We have collisions and lag introduced by having multiple robots on this track. And Hot Rod's opting out of the train track challenge. They'll be taking these long sweeping curves around the brick walls before approaching the next, which is the orange platform challenge. Team Coca-Cola behind, looking to build up a little bit of speed on this green line and hopefully catch up to the Hot Rods. And they've made it out of the cone slalom, regaining that green tracking line to the next challenge. Looks like the Hot Rods as well have moved on to the next challenge, which would be the orange platform, or if they opt out of that, another set of long sweeping curves around these brick walls. And it looks like they opt out. Coca-Cola following the same line as the Hot Rods around these long sweeping lines through the brick walls. We'll have to see if they'll be able to make up some time and build some speed on that long straightaway, and the bank turn, maybe the jump will also help them close that gap between the Team Coca-Cola and the Hot Rods. So both teams are able to track these green lines with a simulated onboard camera in our pretty rich simulation environment. Each one of these cars has a camera, a depth camera, and a LiDAR. And these are simulated basically with the viewpoints of the robot as it moves across the track. So there's some difficulty there in processing that stream and making sense out of it to center the car on the green line. But both teams appear to be pretty rock steady on these lines as they're approaching the next challenges. The Hot Rods making their way down that straightaway to the banked turn, and Team Coca-Cola making their way through the sweeping turn through the brick walls, parallel to the orange platform challenge. We'll have to see if either team opts into the final jump. That's the final challenge that involves jumping over the hall of orange columns. They can shave quite a bit of time off their lap by doing this, but if they don't build enough speed, they might end up back halfway across the track. It looks like the Hot Rods do opt into that final jump. We'll have to see if they stick the landing. This bank turn will allow teams to build up a little bit more speed than they usually would on a curved section of track. And several teams have utilized the onboard sensors, accelerometers and gyroscopes to be able to tell when the car is on a banked track versus a flat curve. And it looks like the Hot Rods have made it across the ramp, but end up facing the wrong way. Hopefully they can find that green tracking line. It looks like they do, but it looks like they're going the wrong way down the track, back up the ramp, and they get reset back to the beginning of that challenge. That'll cost them quite a bit of time. Team Coca-Cola close behind as well. We may have an upset here if Team Coca-Cola is able to close that gap between them and the hot rods. They have been given quite an opportunity to do so. We'll have to see if they opt to take the jump as well or the long way around on that green tracking line. And they do take that reliable option, the green tracking line. The hot rod's making their way onto the ramp for a second time. Hopefully they can stick the landing this time and proceed to the finals if they're able to do so. Looks like a little bit of sliding there, a little bit of drifting, but they grab that tracking line and that'll take them towards the finish. Team Coca-Cola following close behind on the raised glass platform. And it looks like the hot rods are across the line at 200.7 seconds. Team Coca-Cola following close behind. I think we see a victory lap from the hot rods as well. I think many teams opted to take this option and keep the car running around the track rather than stop at the finish line. And why not? Team Coca-Cola approaching the finish line as well. And they are across the line. In 213.124 seconds. Not too shabby of a time either. One of the better ones that we've seen today. So that concludes the top half of our bracket here. It looks like it'll be the hot rods going into the final challenge. And we have one more race here in the semifinals. It's the Drift Kings against the Coastal Coders. So here we've got our final race. On the left side, the Coastal Coders. On the right, the Drift Kings. And we'll get it started. Match 4 is off. Both teams racing down the line. An astute viewer would note that neither car is visible in the other car's video frame, and that is correct. Reason for that is both of these teams have been very competitive with their driving speeds, and actually running both of these cars on the track at the same time, we weren't able to get a completed lap time for either of them. There were too many collisions and way too much action, quite a bit of glitching as well. So we've got them running on parallel tracks today. And we'll just look for the fastest time around this track. Both teams wasting no time getting down these green tracking lines, approaching the Hall of Orange columns. And that little move by the Coastal Coders here, backing up in front of those orange columns, caused all kinds of calamity in this race. Quite a bit of collisions, and we saw the same thing on this elevator shaft as well. Both teams crammed on there and nearly spun out each other's wheels several times. Looks like the Drift Kings on the right, just getting out of that elevator shaft now. The Coastal Coders close behind their version of the track. Interestingly, both teams opt into the cone slalom. Coastal Coders missing it that first time. And they get going pretty quick actually down this pretty steep hill. The Drift Kings on the right side also making their way down this very steep cone slalom. Cutting pretty wide, but making their way safely down this hillside. Looks like the Coastal Coaters are already down and moving on to the next phase of the challenge. Tracking that green line past the train tracks. And the Drift Kings following close behind, or I should say in parallel. Both teams opting into that more difficult vision-based cone slalom without the use of the green line. And that'll shave quite a bit of time off of their laps. Of course, having both cars running down that cone slalom at the same time proved to be very difficult and actually impossible for either team to complete the challenge. Looks like the Coastal Coaters are up the ramp and making their way down that straightaway, rocketing down that straightaway into the banked turn. Drift Kings trying to close the gap as well. Maybe drifting across those sweeping turns, as their name might suggest. Looks like the Coastal Coaters are already on the colored section of track, wasting no time, and opting into the final jump. Meanwhile, Drift Kings are just approaching that ramp onto the race section of track now. Maybe they'll be able to build up some speed on this straightaway. And the Coastal Coaters make their way across the jump safely. It looks like they're backing up now. Maybe trying to regain that green line several times now. Maybe a 6-point turn before they're able to grab it and rocket across the line at 222 seconds. Drift Kings following closely behind, making their way across that glass raised platform, getting a serious amount of airtime and drifting into that final corner. Oh, before driving back across, and they get reset back to the beginning of that challenge. Drift Kings sticking the landing this time, drifting through that final corner and across the line. Congratulations to both teams. And it looks like we'll have the Coastal Coaters facing off against the Hot Rods in our final challenge tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow for the final Grand Prix race between the Hot Rods and the Coastal Coaters.